But anyway, I was in Target the other day, and have you guys noticed how we've started to transition from uh, there's all these checkout lanes, and they did this self checkout, and the self checkout's great when you've got a couple items, you're ready to go, but you're like, okay, if I got a full cart, I gotta do the checkout, right? But now there's only like two people doing it, so pretty much everyone has been filtered to those self checkout lanes. And I don't like this is not a message about that's so terrible or whatever, but I will say I was meditating on Ecclesiastes when I was experiencing this because I had gone through, I did a really good job. I brought my own bags. I was really proud of myself. I bagged everything myself, got it organized the way I wanted to. I was in and out. And then I got into the car and I was putting my bags away, and a stick of deodorant was like hanging out in the middle of the bags. I was like, I didn't pay for that deodorant, right? Yeah, we've been there. And I had this moment where I was like, I said, I've spent a lot of money at Target, and I'm sure they've had enough. And one time we got a yellow onion, but we paid for a white onion. You know what I mean? Like, it's more expensive, right? So I was like, okay, I have given money to Target before, so I was real ready to get back in my car and go. But I will say, I decided, okay, let me go in, let me pay for the deodorant. You never know who's watching, whatever. Like I said, I got real quick through that self-checkout lane. I came back in, the line was long, the carts were full, and the people did not know how to check out their own things. And when that happened, I thought of this verse to myself. I'm going to have you guys click because I did not bring. I thought of this. I thought, this too I carefully explored. Even though the actions of the godly and wise people are in God's hand, no one knows whether God will show them favor. I thought to myself, man, I looked at everything people were doing, and what I realized, it doesn't always go well or the way I want them to go, even when I do the right thing. And so, in Target, I found myself in the book of Ecclesiastes. And you guys know that we've been in the book of Ecclesiastes all summer, and I hope that it's resonated with you in so many ways. Because a lot of times, sometimes we come into church and feel like we walk out with a black and white solution to something, a simple next step. But what we realize is that life is often much more confusing and gray than what we think. We don't always really know the outcome, and even when we do the right thing. And that's not a good thing, right? It's not good that the world doesn't always make sense. It doesn't make sense that if you do a good thing, sometimes bad things happen. Or sometimes you do bad things and good things happen. And so the question for us is, what are we supposed to do about that? We looked at the book of Ecclesiastes, and in the very beginning of this series, we learned that it's part of the wisdom books. And there's 3 wisdom books. There's Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Job. And the contrast between Proverbs and Ecclesiastes really feels like the strongest contrast. Because we start in Proverbs, and it's hopeful, and you hear, okay, if you do this, things will go well. If you do the right thing, this is what's going to happen. It's kind of like you walked into an elementary school teacher's classroom, and she's like, if you follow this, you get a prize from the prize box, right? But Ecclesiastes feels a little bit more like you've walked into a college English professor's classroom who's ready to turn your life upside down, right? Yeah. It's a cynical book. You walk in, and Professor Sarah says, you know what, life is smoke. It's beautiful, it's mysterious, but it's sometimes confusing and difficult, and all you can control is the attitude you're going to have right now in this present moment. But we have to also remember that the book of Ecclesiastes is not written by that cynical teacher. The book of Ecclesiastes is written by an author who gets to reflect on what that teacher is thinking. And I think that's the position that we should take too. We shouldn't say this is absolutely the way we have to live. This is just eat, drink, be merry because tomorrow you die, right? We get to think about what wisdom can we take from this book as people who believe that we live for a greater kingdom. So, let's do that. Let's look at a verse. This is kind of a weird verse in Ecclesiastes. It says, whoever is joined to all the living, there is hope. For better a live dog than a dead lion. I am really sorry if I'm giving everyone Mufasa flashbacks right now, okay? But this is what this is about. Now, let's think about this verse. So I always think it's important to say, okay, the people who originally wrote this and who it was originally written to, what would they have thought when they read this verse? Well, first of all, we think about a dog, right? We love dogs. Dogs are great. The ancient Israelites, not so much, right? Even in historical archaeological records, they can see evidence of dogs in communities around the Israelites, but in the Israelite communities, dogs were not a part of their everyday life. And in fact, they often said things about dogs. They disparaged people with this image of a dog. So even a live dog is not a cute or exciting image for the ancient Israelites. But a lion is, right? Like a lion, think about this. There are people who are deeply connected to nature, who are swayed by the forces of nature. So they see a lion as a powerful symbol. And if any of you guys are Caleb fans, like it was like our God is lion, Lion of Judah, right? So we know that this is a symbol that the Israelites used. So basically here, what they're saying is it's better to be a living rat than a dead whatever your favorite animal is, right? This is a pretty strong contrast. But why? Well, it says it in the beginning. It says, are you alive? If you're alive, if you're living, you can do something. There's hope. So it's better to be doing something, even if it's small, than to be doing nothing, even if you have the greatest idea. What's great about a lion? It's powerful, it's mighty, but a lion on the wall, a lion's not really doing anything there. And I think for all of us, we have a lion vision of the way we think life should be, right? The way we think the world should be, what we want to do for God. But I think here we're reminded that it's better to be doing even the smallest thing than to have a really great idea, but to not be doing anything about it. So I was thinking about this the other day. So we have a dog, right? We love a dog. We love dogs. We think dogs are great. But like stray dogs are a little bit harder to handle, right? So there was a dog that wandered into our area the other day. It was a sweet dog. It was a nice dog. And Derek called and was like, what do I do with this dog? I was like, well, it doesn't have a collar. I know, Birchmans, you guys are like the kingdom vision of this. I'm getting to it, okay? But, but we said, okay, you can take it, you can keep it. That's probably like the best kingdom thing to do, right? But y'all, we got a baby, we got a dog, Derek's in school. But we could also take it to the vet and they could check for a chip. But then if it doesn't have a chip, then you gotta have to decide to do with the dog. So you just let it free, right? Like all those things are great things to do. I think they're the lion vision of the way to take care of these animals that roam around us. But we just said, no, we can't do it. Like we really couldn't. Well, we probably could. Y'all did. But we just didn't feel like we could do it. But Derek said, you know what? I can't do everything, but I can give this dog a bowl of water and some food on a hot day, right? And I think that's the vision of what we're called to do, at least in this verse. Not let our inability to do everything stop us from at least doing something. And why? Because I truly believe that God shows up in the mundane, in the small, in the ordinary, in the most powerful ways. It says this in verses 9 through 10 of Ecclesiastes. It says, 10 through 11. It says, whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might. For there is no activity, planning, knowledge, or wisdom in Sheol where you're going. Again, I again saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, and the battle is not to the warriors. Neither is bread to the wise, nor wealth to the discerning, nor favor to the skillful. For time and chance overtake them all. I think what it's saying here is if you see something you can do that's good, do it. Because now is your chance. No one knows if you'll have time to do that good again. The fastest people, the strongest people, the smartest, most talented people, they're not always the one that wins. Luck, time, and chance affects everyone. So when I read this verse and when I think about this lion and this dog, I think we're left with a lot to think about. So say we are that person. Say we're talented and we're smart and we're fast and coordinated at sports. We can read this and we can be really sad, right? That, oh, well, no matter what I do, things aren't going to be good. Or perhaps this is our chance to chill out, right? Sometimes we hold so tight to the outcomes of things. We think, my value and my worth is in my ability to set and meet specific goals. But maybe there's more at play than our own efforts, for better or for worse. Now, maybe you're not the smartest or the fastest. Maybe I'm not very good at sports, right? I could look at this verse and I could say, disparage my neighbor, or I could be encouraged, right? I'm not supposed to look at this and say, haha, like I'm not as good at sports as you, so that means like I'm better because the race isn't always into you, right? Like the upside down kingdom doesn't mean we disparage the good gifts that God gives people. And yet, if I'm slow, weak, not very smart, awkward, clumsy, I can read this and I can say, perhaps the race is mine to win. Perhaps in my weakness, God has favor for me too. And in all of this, I think it's important to remember that in chapter 9, we're still hearing from this cynical teacher. But the whole book is building towards the author's response to fear the Lord and keep his commandments. And not only that, but Ecclesiastes is not the only book of the Bible. And the Old Testament isn't the only covenant that God had with his people. The Bible is not over. We know as Christians that we drive towards a better kingdom, making the time we're living here on earth more like heaven for our community and for the rest of the world. And so I think about this live dog and this dead lion and the light of the stories that Jesus told. I think of the math of the kingdom. We know that Jesus was a Messiah who turned status upside down. He walked around and he saw the fastest people, the strongest people, the smartest people, the most talented people. And man, he loved them, but they didn't need him. And he realized, he told them that sometimes you don't have eyes to see and you don't have ears to hear. These good things that I've given you have stopped your ability to listen. And then he walked around and he said that the opposite of all those good things, he said, those are my people. The slow, the weak, the not very smart, the awkward, the clumsy, the lame, the poor, the outcast. He said, that's my kingdom. And then he walked around and he told these stories about how the smallest thing could make the biggest difference. He sat down with a group of the poor and the farmer, and he said, you know how you go out into a field and you take a mustard seed and you bury that mustard seed, and then from it grows a massive tree. And then he saw a kid that showed up to one of his sermons and was probably running around and kind of bored, maybe like you guys, I don't know, right? But he saw that the kid brought 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, and he said, I can use that to feed 5,000 people. So when we think, we have to realize that Jesus' math is a little bit different. So let's look at this verse again. Ecclesiastes 9, verse 4. It says, whoever is joined to all the living, there is hope. For better a live dog than a dead lion. My question for you guys today, and we're wrapping it up because it's a shorter day today. So as you go, take the time to think, what can you do with what you have? Yoni, you can head up. I'm going to encourage you today is to not let your lion vision stop you from taking your dog moment. I know we have big dreams and plans, what we think things should look like, what we believe we want and believe that God can do, and yet we know that God is in the small and in the everyday. In breakfast at school, in the way we treat someone when we're picking up lunch, that's when we get to bring the kingdom here. Our faith and our reputation as followers of Jesus is made up of not of the great, majestic things that we do, but in how we spend our most normal moments. I was thinking about this story. You guys may have heard this before, but there's a man and there's a storm coming. And he's like, they know it's going to be pretty bad. And so his neighbor drives by in a car and he's like, hey, man, like, come on, let's get out of here. We're evacuating. He's like, nope, I trust God. I have faith. He's going to take care of me. He's like, okay, bye. And the flood waters start to rise and the street starts to flood. And his neighbor comes by in a motorboat. And he says, buddy, come on, we're getting out of here. He says, no, I have faith in God. I know he's going to save me. Hey, baby girl. And then the floodwaters rise all the way up, and he's on his roof, and he's looking out, and a helicopter comes, and the helicopter rescue worker says, come on, let's go. I'm ready to save you. Does she need to come come up here. Okay. Does she need, he says, come on, let's go, right? And he says, no, I have faith. God is going to save me. And so the helicopter goes away. The man ends up in heaven, and he says, God, what? Like, where were you? And he says, buddy, I was in your neighbor's car. I was your friend in the boat. I was the rescue worker in the helicopter. Where were you? Right? God says to us, I was in the ordinary in order to do the extraordinary. And so today, we took buckets of random stuff, right? And we turned them into something new. We saw infinite possibilities in something that we would normally look at in the dollar bin and say, this should probably go in the trash, right? That's us. That's what we get to do. We get to take the small things we have, put them in the hands of God, and see him do whatever he wants to do with them. I think about a table of junk being turned into new things. I think about a bowl of water bringing heaven to earth for a dog for just that moment. I think about walking back into Target and making the world a more honest place just for a day, right? So today I encourage you, what are you going to do to light up your moment, your space, whatever good you have to do with it? Because that is the kingdom.